Welcome to another episode of the 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. As always, I'm your girl Meah, holding it down as always. Listen, shout out to everyone that's tuned in, whether you're tuning in on Sirius XM via Holy Culture, or if you're watching on Reach Records YouTube channel. Listen, as always, we're so happy you guys are here. Y'all, I feel like one of the best things about me doing this is to have my friends here. You know what I'm saying? It's of course being able to it's great being able to talk to people and get to know them in real time. But people who you've seen and known and be able to see them grow, even genuinely fans of on the mic and it's fans of who they are as people, it's just a beautiful experience to be able to know them. But then I love being able to open up the platform that I share where you guys can see who they are, and I can really put you on in real life if you don't know. This woman, y'all, is, I say this all the time, and I don't even know if I've ever said this to her. She is one of the most underrated artists, like ever to me. I feel like it's like if you know, you know, and if you don't know, you really should know. If you're a fan, if you're a Reach fan, if you're a Reach fan, you should be familiar with her, but you've heard her on so many different songs. I'm thinking of songs like Beautiful Life with Trip, and even things with Tadashi, and really just everybody. And she is just pure in soul, so cool, so calm, collected, laid back. And she's here on the 116 Life. You know her, you love her. Her name is V Rose, and she is here.
What's up? Oh, that was the sweetest intro. Thank you.
No, absolutely. How are you? I feel like I know last year we were texting and we were just trying to link up, and I just hate, man, V, I feel like that's one of like the things I hate, like for real. It's like you always say, yo, like let's link, let's do things. It's like, yeah, I mean it with everything in me. I'm like, let's do really it. And then like life happens and like the holidays happened, and I know you just celebrated a birthday, and like everyone's trying to get settled in the new year. So it's like, if I can even just take this, just us being able to at least see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long. So how have you been? Just talk about where you are in this season of life right now.
Yes, well, it's so good to see you always. And I love your friendship, even though we don't get together as much. We have to do that. Yeah, right now, I'm really just enjoying what God is doing in my life. I'm settling into the roles that I'm playing. I'm still very much an artist firsthand, so that takes a lot of my energy, just writing my music. I started producing my own music. And so that's been like a journey the past couple of years that I've just been on. I feel like I've been in a cave, like just soaking up all this information and really like learning so that I can go where I want to go in the next decade.
Yeah.
And then I have my label, Indie West Music Group.
Indie West Music Group.
Yes. And so I signed Lyric the Genius last January, and so we've been developing her and putting out her music.
Shout out Lyric, she's in the building right now, being cool, the next Kanye, as V be saying.
Yes, Lyric is a problem.
Yeah.
She just has such a great imagination, and I love that, and I recognize that.
Yeah,
because I was like that. So she's a joy. She just goes 100 miles an hour. I just love it. So yeah, I'm doing that, and just everything that comes with it. You know, traveling, forward thinking. I'm getting ready to do some musical workshops in South Africa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've been going out there the past 4 years, really since I moved out here.
Really?
And this year I was like, instead of bringing me out for like a concert, let's do like a workshop. Because the kids there, they really want to work with me. And I'm like, how can we do more with them? So we decided to put together a workshop, and then it kind of took off. Everybody wants to in on it. And so we're going to be traveling across the coast, just kind of doing that.
Man, I feel like you said so much that you're doing.
I know. I was like, how much more do you want to know?
No, but like that's awesome. South Africa. So you've been before.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it like being out there?
Well, the places I have been going are very rural, which seems to be like something that I've always done in my ministry as an artist. I've gone to like the most rural places in Texas and the Midwest here. And so then it just wasn't a surprise that happened for me there. But there's like a lot of these little towns, and everybody will come out because they don't get like a lot of stuff like that there.
Yeah.
And last year or year before, I went to a conference there, and one of the key things that they would say is there's no praise like a South African praise. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so we went to this conference, and it's at this big church called CRC out there. And we went to this big conference they have, Dream Week. And it was like the whole building praises together. It's like one praise is the best way I can describe it. And no one has to make you like get up and worship or praise. It was just like they came expecting, people lined up outside for hours to get in. So I was like, wow. So every time I go out there, I really feel refreshed. They think I'm coming out there to give them something, but I think I'm getting something when I go out there.
Yeah.
So, and Lyric's gone with me too.
Yeah. What has been the biggest things that you feel like you've gotten since, well, I guess, what do you leave with when you
always
leave?
Something different. I feel like God is always speaking new things in my life, like new direction, new clarity. I think if anything, it was building my faith and showing me like what God can do if I just allow him. Because, and I don't really want to get into the industry too much, but like the record industry, sometimes we can feel like that's the only way through, like for God to bless us or make us successful or take us somewhere. But God showed me like, that's just one avenue. But like, if you trust me and you put your gift in my hand, I can take you any avenue and we can just go, around industry. Yeah. And so when I went, it was an act of faith because I was like, well, I want to go to Africa. I have a lot of listeners there. And then somebody reached out and I was like, well, hey, let's do an event. And I didn't know I was challenging their faith when I asked them that. And so we kind of put our faith together and we started doing this annually.
Man.
So I think that was the biggest thing that I did. And now I'm like, well, let's evolve it even more. Yeah. Let's do these workshops. And now I'm getting calls from different countries like, well, can you come here? And so I'm like, okay, wait, give me a second. Let me build
so much
team.
For me to go around.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fire, V. So where else you think you may go?
Probably just other places in Africa.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of listeners there. I always have. I think it must have come from Flame. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Like he's really big there.
Yeah.
So when I signed with him, I started getting a lot of listeners. Because every time I post like, where should I go? People are like, come to Kenya, come to Nairobi, come. So I'm like, I don't know how to go there.
Yeah.
But God does, and God knows the people. So I'm just like, what can I do? I'm just taking like little steps.
Sheesh, that's such an experience. I heard so many beautiful things about Africa. I can't wait to go one day. And the fact that you get a chance to go back, that's just like a blessing within itself.
It is.
I'm so excited that you'll be a chance to like experience that. Like I love that you said that not only do they feel like they're getting something from you, but you leave something as well. I think that's just so beautiful hearing you say that. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about with you being here. And I was thinking to myself, I was thinking of like top talking points. I was like, I don't think I know your story on how you even got introduced to music. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, I just remember, I can't even tell you the first moment and where I heard your music. And then I'm even trying to think of like the first, where we first met even. But I feel like it just kind of happened.
I was just here.
I said, well, I want to get to know how you even got introduced to what you do now on a regular basis. Like, do you remember like your first introductions to music and like what even made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, so I grew up singing in church.
Okay.
When I was 4, I don't remember this, but my mom said I really, really wanted to sing in the choir. And so she let me sing in the choir and she put a chair and I would stand up there so I could be take it serious, I guess. So I was always a singer, but my mom was also a country singer. And so I know that really influenced me. And she played guitar and piano and she led the choir of our church. So I remember around 6 years old, my mom was like, come here and let me hear you sing. You know, when your parents are trying to figure out if you got any skills.
Yeah.
And I started singing. And then after I realized I could sing for real, I just knew like this is what I was going to be doing. And so I remember specifically after that going into my room and I remember God speaking to me and saying, you're going to be a singer. You're going to travel the world. You're going to tell people about Jesus. I was 6.
6?
I was 6. And I mean, it wasn't uncommon for us to like be, my parents were pastors. And so they were like, taught us to pray at a young age. And so I was always like, oh God, where are you? As a baby.
Yeah.
And so I just believed God. And I remember I ran into the kitchen. I told my mom, God told me I'm going to be a singer. I'm going to travel the world. And she's like, okay, honey, that's great. But I never let go of that. And I really believe it's why I went on to do just that. Because even when I was 17 and 18, and I was just getting into my first record deal, there were still people telling me like, well, what about plan B? Or like, what will you do if this doesn't work out? And I was just like, but God said, I just still had like this fire burning in me.
Yeah.
Of like, what? I don't get why I would have a backup plan.
Yeah.
And so I just really challenged that. And I believe it's why I've gone on to do the work I've done.
6 years old, V.
6 years old.
That's crazy.
I know.
So do you remember what those early stages, when you said signing to a record deal when you were 18, you said?
So my first deal, I was 16.
16. Okay. So do you remember like those early stages of what that was like for you and start wanting to pursue music and take that seriously?
Oh, yeah. So I was the kid that I would sit everybody on the couch and say, I just wrote a song.
Okay.
Let me perform it for you guys.
Right.
And my mom was always afraid to sing as a young adult. And so when she had me, I'm the only girl. I have 6 brothers. So she saw in me that I would be timid or afraid, and so she wanted to break that in me. So she would always call me up randomly to do a solo in church. Oh. And I think that really helped, instill a drive in me. But yeah, so I had a plan. I mean, I was like, I started a business, I think when I was 8, I started selling candy after church, and I was like, I'm raising money for studio time. Oh, for me, the dream was real. And I was like, I'm going to make this happen one way or the other because I know who I am now, So I was very much like, you couldn't talk me out of
it.
No.
You were sold out. Like, this is it.
You still can't get me to stop thinking about music or talking about it or doing it because it's just always been a love for me.
So what do you remember? What are some other memories you remember like with your mom? I think that's so beautiful. Your mom really drilling into you confidence. What did that mean to you? Like looking back now, you know what I'm saying? Like, were there any moments that you remember back then that you feel like make up who you are now, those moments with your mom?
Yeah. My mom, she was very strict with me. Yeah. And I think because I was the only girl and also like I was like a representation of her wherever we went. I think so my parents were always very strict. But I think that taught me discipline, and I think it taught me to take myself serious, to pay attention. I didn't ever see her pursuing music, so I don't think I got that from her. But I did think, where you stopped, I want to go beyond, and she always encouraged that, But yeah, just the way I carry myself, the way I believe. I know the biggest thing I got from my mom was learning how to pray. My mom made sure we knew how to pray, and she made sure we prayed. Yeah. And to the point where we were like, oh my gosh, do we have to fast today? Do we have to pray? Wow. But she really wanted it to like sink in, to become real to us. And so I think that's the biggest thing I got from my mom, is just to love Jesus, to have a real relationship with him.
That's so, I love that because I think people just underestimate how people underestimate kids. Yeah. And how, like, we know when the Bible says we're teach a child in the way which they won't depart from it. Right. And things like that, you think that a child's not going to understand fasting. Like they're not really going to understand like prayer. We'll just do the thank you, Lord, for the food we're about to receive. You know what I'm saying? But like,
but it's building a habit. Yeah. And that eventually, when they're ready to understand, the discipline will be there. Yeah.
Right.
For me, it worked well.
Sense. Yeah. I can tell. Yeah. I'm just thinking of just who you are and who you've evolved to be. Knowing that you have those roots are just beautiful. And when we come back, I want to dive a little bit more into just like what young V was like. Those foundations that your parents built, and even like growing up as a PK, what that was like for you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on the 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. We got V Rose in the building and Meah Evans here, and we'll be right back. And we're back here on the 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. We got V Rose in the building, and we're talking about just like her life foundations, guys. And I want to dive into that. I want you to dive in a little bit about like just what life was like growing up for you, if you can remember. Like, because I guess you still grew up in California, Sacramento, right? So what was life like growing up in Sacramento for you? How do you remember how you were growing up? And even dive into what it was like even being, for your experience as being a PK, being in the church and things like that.
Ooh, that's a lot to cover. So I mean, as a kid, I'm the only girl. I have 6 brothers. So, you know, I survived. You know, I get on stage sometimes and I say I was raised with wolves.
Yeah.
But I made it.
Well, talk about like what is that? Because I mean, growing up with like 2 brothers, but 6 is crazy.
Yes. So I was just one of the boys to them, essentially. Yeah. They used to say like, you're not a girl, you're my sister. And then if I would cry about something, they'd be like, can you go cry over there, please? I mean, they were really like, you're not getting special treatment. Oh, sorry. Wow, yeah. Like, you're a fluke. You weren't supposed to be a girl. So that's really how they were. But then some, you know, they had their sweet moments. My older brothers were more sweet to me because they're like 7 years older. And then I always looked up to them. But I think the coolest part about growing up with all brothers is, you know, it makes you tough, you know, because they don't let you cry about everything. But then also I was so inspired by all of them that it's why I can do so many things. So one of them was really good at basketball. And so now I can play basketball.
Oh,
one of them played the guitar. And so I was like, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so now I play the guitar. One of them can draw. And so I was like, I can do that. And now I'm an artist, you know. And then one of them rapped. And I was like, well, maybe I could rap, you know. And so I really just gleaned from like, really like the competitive nature inside of me.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't let you do that and me not do it. And so I just, you know, I really look up to a lot of them. I love them. So that was cool. We were just very energetic kids. And so always getting into trouble or like starting something or doing something. And I was just tagging along. But growing up as a PK was cool. You know, my parents were very strict because we were the pastor's kids and we had to go to church every day. So especially me being a woman, or a young girl, I was in everything. I was in the women's meetings. I was in the kids' meetings. I would go to the teens' meetings. And then because I'm in music, I was in the praise team and I was in the choir.
So you was in the church
I was in
24/7.
The church. Until I was 16, I went to church every single day. In fact, my mom wouldn't let me play basketball because she was like, well, you can't miss church. And I'm like, but I'm so good. Like, even my teachers were like, but she's so good. But it just wasn't meant to be because I was meant to do music. So
yeah.
But yeah, it was difficult at times, you know, like being a pastor's kid, whenever the pastor talks about you, it's like my friends, and we were looking at me like, dang, come on. Yeah. So that's tough. And then just like having, you know, being the representation of your family, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. I think all of us felt like we didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
So I think as a PK, you naturally have that, at least in our environment. But what was dope is like, you know, building the spiritual disciplines early on. And for me, God was always real to me. So despite what I was experiencing in church, God was always real. And I had my own personal relationship. And so I'm just really grateful for that. For whatever reason, he revealed himself to me at such a young age.
Yeah.
Where I understood like, oh, this is not a game. And this is also not coming from the church building, but this is just me and you. So I'm grateful to have had that understanding because I think it helped me process a lot of the stuff I experienced in my life.
Yeah. What do you remember about Sacramento growing up? I'm just curious. I've never been. So like, I'm just curious about like what that environment, that city.
It's nothing to see.
Really?
No, I mean, I think it maybe at one time was a really great city. I feel like now there's a lot of crime.
Oh man.
And I just think the economy like crashing. So a lot of my family has moved out. But I still have a lot of friends there. You know, I will always love Sacramento as a place. I think it needs a lot of help. I think it's hard for artists in the industry there because they're so far, like in the Christian industry. But there are artists that are really trying to, you know, boost that part of the country.
Yeah.
And the awareness of that there are a lot of artists there. But it's just difficult. You know, I found it a lot easier to move over here and to be closer to where I'm having my shows or where I need to travel. And but growing up there was cool. I was very sheltered, so I wasn't really doing a lot. Yes, very sheltered. I was homeschooled from 6th grade through high school. So I was at home and I was just focusing on music and God, you know, that was my life. So yeah, I couldn't wait to get out of Sac. We used to say Sac is whack. And
really?
If you grew up in Sac, you know, we used to say Sac is whack.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But I grew up and I left, and then I started to develop more of an appreciation for hometown because I realized like, oh, we actually have a way that we talk from Sacramento. We have slang and we have culture and things that are just ours, native to where we're from. And I didn't realize that until I left. And then I was like, oh, I kind of miss home.
Yeah.
And I miss not having a GPS where I'm going.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, having memories here and here. So those things I do really appreciate and will always love about Sacramento.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, because you said you, of course, with you growing up in church, you had those values, those faith values instilled in you in a very young age. Because I was going to ask you, when you took your relationship with God to another level, or like when it came real to you. But honestly, it really seems as if it was real to you from 6 years old, and he told you were going to be a singer.
Yeah,
you know?
So it was real in the sense that I understood that God was real and would speak to me. And I was learning biblical principles, promises of God, you know, salvation, and I accepted all of that. I was baptized at 8. And so I understood those things at a young age. But then I remember a pivotal moment for me in my relationship with God when I was 16. I was in a women's prayer meeting with my mom, and she's like, Vienna, come up here and sing. That's my name, by the way, Vienna. So she's like, Vienna, come up here and sing. And I'm like, she knows that I have my own music.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I'm an artist now. And so I was really starting to feel myself as a teenager, which is crazy. But anyway, so I got up there and I remember being frustrated with my mom, and I decided, you know what? I am going to worship. And I remember I surrendered. I lifted my hands. And I remember when I did that and I made the decision, I felt like a change in my heart. And God showed me that his gift that he's given me wasn't for me, that it was for others, and that it was for his glory. And I remember overhearing my mom, like weeks before that, she was talking to my manager at the time, who happened to be Lyric's dad.
Oh, really?
Crazy story.
You are kidding me.
No. So her dad was my first manager. Yes. And her mom was my first vocal coach, and they ended up getting married, and they had her. So I was like, I gotta develop her as an artist.
That is crazy.
So sidebar. But so she was talking to him, and she was like, yes, you know, Vienna, she's gonna have such a great ministry. And I remember I was eavesdropping, and I remember being like, ministry? I'm not doing no ministry. You know, because I was a PK, and I was like, no, I'm an artist. It's about music. But then weeks later, in this moment, it was like God changed my heart, and he showed me that really even deeper, more about who he is and how he does what he does. And I remember being like, oh, and I remember telling my mom, like, oh, I get it. I just get it now. Yeah. Like, this isn't about me. And even though I'm the one living it and I'm living it out and I'm experiencing it, and yes, it is my creativity, but it's me partnering with God. It's his influence. And it really is. Yeah. It really is. All of the dopest things I've said or wrote, becoming who I am, it's really through the influence of the Holy Spirit. So
when you realized that shift for you, like when you said the whole, like, that this was really about God and that your eyes were just open, how from then on, how did you move different? Like when it came to just not even just you as a creative, but your heart posture and how you created music in your career, i.e. your ministry.
Yeah. I think it changed. The biggest change was how I have to discover how to do that. So at first it was like hardcore. It's not about me and it's just Jesus. But then like along the way, I realized like, okay, but God wanted me to be a part of this. So there is some me in there. You know, there is a uniqueness he only gave me that needs to be expressed, but it's through his inspiration. So it's like, it was a journey for me to discover that. Yeah. But that's part of the process. You know, God is faithful. I say that all the time. God is faithful. And what I mean is like, he's going to show up and show you. He's going to show up and show you over and over again. So you don't know how to do something, you don't fully have a good understanding of what you're supposed to do. God is faithful. He's going to show up and show you. And so my journey was just me continuing to discover, like, how do I go about this Christian walk, expressing who I am and still shining my light, you know? And so that was just an ongoing thing, because really I think I'm still discovering that, you know? But I think it's just, it brought an awareness to like, wait, it's not just me. Hold on. It's not just, you know, V is the next big thing. There's something else at play here. So then it was just me discovering that.
So I'm curious. So because you met Flame when you were
20.
Really? So how did that come about? Was that was it through the label or?
No, yeah, well, yes. So I actually had a show that he was at. So it was actually his show.
Okay.
But everybody was trying to get on, the local stuff. It's like, wait, can I open?
Right.
And so I knew the promoter. And so there was actually some controversy because when I showed up, they were like, you're not singing. I'm like, what? I actually went out to the car and I cried. I was like, God. But I prayed and I went back in there. And my manager at the time, he was like, okay, I talked to them and they're going to let you do the altar call. And I was like, bet. Because I had a song that I had wrote at the time with a producer I was working with called Cry Holy. And so I was like, I'll do that song because it's a great altar call song. It's about Jesus. It's about if I ever get to heaven, I won't ask him why he died or why he created the planets. I'll just worship. I'll be saying holy. So I got up there, I did the altar call, and Flame happened to be in the back of the room because we were at a skating rink, so there was no green room. Anyways, after that, he asked to do a song with me, which was just crazy because we were trying to get him on a song. We were just like, oh, Flame, you're so dope. And I loved Flame. I mean, I had his albums. I was a huge fan. Go Buck with the Angels, all that. So I really wasn't expecting him to ask for a feature. And so like weeks later, he hits my manager up and he's like, well, hey, we'd actually like to get V on our song. Do you have anything? And I was like, scrambling, but I had just wrote I Surrender, which was the first big record I did with Flame.
Sheesh.
And so I was like, well, I have this. And so we sent it over and he was like, I love it. And I was like, so hey, are you looking for any other records? He's like, no, the album's done. And so then of course I stayed up that night and I'm like, let me write another record. So I ended up submitting Captured Me and he was like, okay, I want that one too. So that's why I got 2 records on the album. Yeah. And then after that, he was like, we want to start a label and we want to sign you as our first artist. And I was just like, because at the time I was going through a lot. I mean, I had left home. I was living in the studio. I was also in school. I was working at the airport at night. My life was very much just like already in faith and just, and so to get that opportunity felt like such a breakthrough, and just at the right time, I really needed it. And so then I went from just being a local artist to traveling the world.
Sheesh.
My first show, I think, with him here was like 13,000 people.
Oh.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to eat that stage like that. So Flame, he would get out there and he's like a firecracker of energy.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about performance, about ministry from him and things like that. And then I think I signed with him when I was 21 out here in Atlanta.
That is crazy, V.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, it's been a crazy journey.
What do you feel like is one of the biggest takeaways you've learned from? Because is it safe to say mentorship? And I guess when it comes to him, what do you feel like is one of the biggest things you've gained from just maybe not even anything that he's said to you, but just from being around him?
I think one of the greatest things I learned is his love for people. Like I never heard him talk about people behind their back. This is stuff that we would experience in other avenues. But with Flame, he was always like, let's pray, or he would always excuse other people's behavior that even though we knew like maybe it wasn't good, Flame would be like, God is gracious. He always brought us around to a positive thought. And when he did have issues with other people, we would get to witness him going to them and saying, hey, can we have a conversation, at different events. And I always thought that was so dope. And so I just really learned, I think, some pivotal things I needed to learn in how to navigate industry situations. Yeah. How to carry yourself and also how to remain a Christian behind closed doors and pray for others. Because he really has a true heart to see people saved. And that just was expressed in all of the areas of his life. And so I didn't realize it then how much it was impacting me. Yeah. But now I do, which is why I mentor now and why I have artists, because I just know, you don't even know that me just bringing you around and bringing you to stuff and letting you see how I interact and the things I've learned can do more for you than me lecturing you all the time and telling you. Because Lyric will tell you, I go on my rants and I'm like, this is what you need to know. And you need to, because I want her to love people, and I want to pass that on to the artists that I work with, because that was, God just paired me with the right artists, I think, in that time in my life.
I think that's why I had to ask you about, I changed what I was asking you, because people don't realize with mentors, a majority of the time, it's not what they say to you.
Right.
It's what you just watch them do. You know what I'm saying? And
100%.
It's crazy how all this comes full circle. And I'm going to talk about that when we come back, at just how full circle it is for you to be mentored and then you walking around now being that for Lyric. And we're going to dive more into that here on the 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. V Rose and Meah Evans here. We'll be right back. And we're back here on the 116 Live here on Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140. V Rose is in the building. Okay, so we were talking about everything being full circle. And how you went from being so intentionally mentored and now you being such an intentional mentor now yourself.
I can't even help it.
Shout out Lyric, who is your artist, a part of Indie West Music Group. At going from being a mentee to now being a mentor, what are some things that you're always keeping in the forefront of your minds that wisdom you can impart, and like what are just some things that you're just always just trying to make sure you're looking out for when it comes to Lyric?
I'm always thinking about what do I wish I would have had as a mentor. So so when I'm hanging out with her, I'm just always thinking like, ooh, maybe I should teach her about this. Or I always share too, like I feel like what's going on in my life so that she knows like stuff I'm dealing with. And how I'm handling it so that she can also understand like, oh, okay, this is stuff that I might handle when I'm older or when I'm in your type of position. I'm very intentional about specifically the skills that I'm teaching her. So like, I'm like, ooh, I wish I would have started playing the piano. Like, so I bought her a piano and got her piano lessons. And it's something that if you want to be a producer, it's something you should learn.
Yes.
But then songwriting, I had help with my songwriting, but I've learned so much as a songwriter about not just about what works, but how to like really express what you mean, how to create a feeling for your audience. And so those are things I want to pour into her, but I don't want to just show her. I want her to discover it. So I'm more so like, the way I teach is I leave breadcrumbs and I'm just kind of like, think about this.
Yeah.
And if you were standing in a room full of people and they ask you to say something, what would you say, And it's kind of like giving you the right prompt to ask yourself to then fill in the blanks, because I don't want to create another V Rose,
Yeah, right.
She's
right.
her own self, and she really is. Like she has a whole world in her head that she sees, and that's important. So I'm just like, how can I help you become who you're supposed to be and not make you into who I think you should be? So there's things I experienced that I really want to guard her from. Yeah. And that's the stuff I keep in mind. And then also I'm like, if I could go back and have me as a mentor, what would I wish they would have done for me? And so, she runs her own sessions. There's things that she does that I wasn't doing at her age that I wish I was. So by the time she's in her 20s, she's going to be a problem.
Light years ahead. Yeah. Like light years ahead. I think that's the beautiful thing about having a mentor. People just underestimate. And I used to be one of those people who just like underestimated having a mentor, just having someone who is able to look out for you and someone whose character you just want to like, embody, you admire. And even me being, having young girls around me, like I'm always just thinking of like, okay, well, what are things that I did learn at a young age that I'm grateful that I learned, but like, what are some things that I missed that I wish someone would have taught me? Yeah. And I'm thinking of like, even with UV, this is all hitting me real time. Like your mom, your mom instilling all those things into you as a young age, Flame, and like as an artist, and then also a believer, and then same with your mom, with you as an artist and a believer, and then it just exuding out of you when it comes to, I feel like artists in general, I just feel like there are other artists that you've brought to the scene that are thriving, and I give credit to you for me knowing them because you brought them up. Do you feel like you just have a passion do you feel like you've developed this passion to just teach other songwriters, artists, when it comes to, or maybe even just women in general, just thinking about even you going to Africa and you wanting to make things into a session. Have you always had that passion you feel like it's cultivated over time?
Yeah, I feel like it's cultivated over time because I did not know that was what I was going to be doing with my time. But now it's even become part of my branding because it doesn't matter who I'm in conversation with. I'm like, oh, you should totally do it. Yeah. And I always find myself trying to inspire. And so, and now I think about that when I'm making my music, when I'm making my content, and then all the people I have around, I've noticed that I've inspired them to start doing music again, to take it serious, to set up your studio, to like, I cannot tell you how many people I've sent carts for like studio gear. Because they're like, will you help me build my studio? I'm like, yes. You know, and I just know it's from the mentorship I've had through the various people that have helped me believe in myself. Now it really helped me believe in myself. So just because I have that and I know that really works, I want to give that back. So I always find myself working with young artists because I believe because I was a kid artist. Yeah. I understand you need somebody to come along and take you serious. So yeah, I think it came over time.
Yeah. I think at a young age when you're starting in anything, it's so essential to have a mentor. Yeah. Because I had that when I was starting in radio. I was following this guy around all the time, this well-respected guy in the radio world. And it's like when we went our separate ways, nothing bad or anything. It's just, we just knew that he had a different direction he wanted to go in. I'm just thinking to myself, I think often like, man, I'm really grateful for what I saw him do. Yeah. And how, like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it makes us who we are today. Like, we can give credit to your mom and Flame for who you are today. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking about all the people, lyrics, so many other artists who can be like, oh man, I just saw V do this. Yeah. Or when I saw her speak on this, or how she handled this situation this way. Yep. That impacted me.
It does. And you may not even realize it till years later. And you'll be like, oh my gosh. Like, I look back at my early time with Flame and sometimes I'll be like, I need to call and apologize for this because I didn't know any better. But like, just the graciousness of a mentor too, but you realize years later, like, oh, that's why I have the confidence to do this, or that's why I felt like I could step into this, because they just took me with them. Yeah. Like, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Get you a mentor, man.
Get a mentor.
You don't regret getting
a couple.
Mentor. Get a couple. No, get a couple. Like, the more the merrier. Yeah. I want to talk about Fourth really quick. Only because I just saw you recently post saying how how that project is, I feel like it's such a staple in your career, and just how much it meant to you, and like reflecting on the song, and then you doing your visualizer series that you're going to be dropping with the album. I want you to just talk a little bit about what Fourth meant to you, creating it, and then looking on it now, why it's such a staple and pivotal moment for you in your career.
So thank you for even recognizing all that. That's so awesome. Fourth was an album I made like entering into a wilderness, and I didn't really know I was. And I think it was one of the first times I really went through a wilderness. So it's crazy that the intro is called Wilderness, because I kind of sensed it. Yeah. But I had just left my last deal with In Pop Records. And so that was my third record deal. And I went indie. And there were labels trying to sign and like people reaching out, but God was like, don't sign anything else. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know what to do. 15 years I have worked with labels, and I have had people helping me do this. How can you possibly think I can do this on my own? And God was like, you can. And so I ended up buying my gear, and I thought maybe I would be like a free agent for 6 months, and then I would sign, with somebody. And then a friend of mine was like, why don't you just try to make one song? Because I was actually debating giving up music, which is crazy.
What? Really?
But just like the trauma of everything I had, the disappointment that I had experienced, and the stuff that I was hearing also back from my music. My music just wasn't the kind of Christian music they wanted in CCM. And then it just wasn't, I really struggled with a style because my music was very eclectic, and it was just a young girl just pouring out her heart. But when I went to make Fourth, I was like, I started out as a girl in her room writing music. And so let me just go back to that. And so I went back to that. I made SOS, and I put SOS out. And after SOS, you couldn't tell me nothing, because I was like, I did my first cover art by myself. So I started doing my own cover art.
You did that? Then. You did the SOS cover art?
I did everything from SOS on.
That's crazy.
It is, because I was like, people are either going to love it or hate it. And
no, that's crazy that you did that.
But I was like, I'm going to go for it. So I just kind of like literally launched out. Yeah. And that song took off and was crazy. But at the time, I didn't have a team. I didn't have a budget. I didn't even know how to do this on my own. And so I was really acting in faith. And then after that song, I was like, I'm going to put an album with it. And so I put the album together. No A&Rs, nobody telling me, I don't think you should put Tripoli on the song, because that was a thing, and which I knew was the right move. And so it was just me and God. And I made this album, and it ended up, I pushed it out. I didn't know if anything was going to come of it. It was really just me proving to myself that I could do it.
Yeah.
And then the following year was 2020. And so that was like August 2019. And then 2020, I'm like, okay, albums usually do this, and then they start to do this. And this was the first time I was in the driver's seat. And now I'm, distributing myself, and I'm looking at the analytics, and I'm like, it was really difficult.
Yeah.
Just to kind of be the only one. But then I Surrender kind of started taking off, and I didn't even know it, because I was just like, I don't want to see anything. I just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And then somebody was like, hey, I Surrender's going viral on TikTok. And I was like, what? It is? Like, who? Where?
Yeah.
And I started seeing the song became bigger than I was.
Yeah.
And it just showed me, like, if I just really trust God and give my time, just give him what I have, he's going to do the most with it. And that album became more successful than any of the albums that I had with my previous record deals. With no marketing budget, I did no visuals, which is why I'm doing them now, because I couldn't. And I had no knowledge of what I was doing. All I knew was, like, if I was going to make an album by myself, this is what I would make.
Right.
And so I made Fourth. So it means a lot to me because of that. Because God showed me that I can do more with, like, just you than with everything you think you need.
Yeah.
And he really has. And so the music I'm making now, I mean, I'm excited to see what God's going to do with it. And just how far I've come. And I look back at the girl who was afraid to go alone, and now you can't get me to sign a deal. I'm like, oh, no. I love my indie. I love being indie.
Yeah.
And I love just helping other artists, educate them, and understand how everything works. So, yeah, you would have to, like, come with a pretty sweet deal.
You got to come with a real sweet deal.
Because I'm producing now, too.
So what is that like? Because you say you've been learning that muscle, too. Like, what has it been going from, of course, singer-songwriter, then now going behind the booth and being a producer?
It's everything. It's everything I've ever dreamed.
Really?
Yes.
Not hard? Like, was it like...
Oh, it was hard.
Okay.
No, it was hard because first I had to learn the piano.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to learn to play my own progressions. But then I had to learn all the tools that people are using to make music now, because it's not the same as the producers I was watching growing up.
Okay.
And, you could do it the same. But to get a modern sound, you have to pay attention to what sounds are being used, what tools are being used. And I had to just learn all that. And then there's no real roadmap for how to start. Everybody starts from a different place.
Oh, wow.
So it was really challenging, which is why I will turn it into a course eventually and teach the path that I took. But now being in control, like, I just went through a breakup. My friends know. And going through a breakup, I can sit down and I can produce a song and emote and express where I'm at. There's nothing that replaces the power that I feel when I can do that.
Yeah.
And just the empowerment to walk away from it, So I still work with other producers, and I love other producers, and I will always collab. I have a lot of co-producers, but being able to originate an idea, there's just nothing like it for me. It was a life goal that I'm accomplishing. So
when you talked about Fourth, when I tell you, I've heard so many people. I'm trying to remember the friend who brought it up to me, and she was like, "Have you ever heard? You should play this artist named V Rose." I was like, "What do you know about V Rose?" And she was just telling me, and I think she was telling me I Surrender, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah!" Like, it was just, it's so crazy. It's so beautiful, of course, seeing God do so much with so little. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
and
it is.
him cultivating you and walking on water within that season is so dope, just seeing all that outcome that's come out with it. So what creative headspace, because I know you're creating now, what creative headspace are you in now when it comes to music? Because we stay in the lab, y'all. I mean, you just got to be in the close friends to see, that we stay. You got to be in the close friends to see.
I got to come out of close friends this year.
No, well, you do, because you'll be holding back. And I'll be like, people need to hear this.
For the close friends.
So talk about just where you are now creatively.
So I'm releasing a lot of music this year. Finally just feel like I found where I want where I want to land. Because I'm an artist. So, you can't get me to drop music because I'm supposed to. I just don't. I don't have that.
Thank you for that.
I don't have it. So I'm just like, I just want to get where I want to be. For me, it's about the process and the art and what it is. So I'm in a good place. I feel like I could write a song every day. My team, we'll end the day winding down, writing songs. We just use it as a wind down.
Yeah.
So I'm really at the top of my game as a writer. And then as a producer, I'm really starting to find it. I love all of my mentors as producers. They love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they're really starting to see a signature sound with me. So that's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And so I'm putting myself out there. This year I'm releasing my stuff and I'm just ready to grow. And then with my content, I've really honed in on my branding and kind of my voicing, and I'm ready to share more of my heart with the world and like, who I am, what I believe, the things that are important to me, the stuff that I want to focus on, the stuff I see, the area that I feel like I can exist in the narrative of the conversations of the world.
Got you.
I really want to inspire artists, which that's what I've been doing, underground.
Yeah. So
So now I'm just coming more outside with it and sharing the stuff that the people that are in close proximity to me have been getting for years now. So I'm excited about that. We have plans and things like that surrounding that.
V, I feel bad for anyone sleeping on you.
I just
because you've already been so like I said, so underrated to me. And I know so many other people, V. It's like every time I bring up your name, they're like, oh yeah, so
Yeah.
I've
been around.
been around,
Yeah.
And that's why when you said I'm an artist, I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it is, so I'm just
is.
so excited. I love being able to know you, but then even see your growth, and then now even hearing it, knowing your story, just makes sense just to every bit of who you are. Before you go, is there any final words you want to give to our listeners? Any way that they can stay in contact with you? The floor is yours.
Yes, check me out at V-Rose Music on Instagram. That's where I live most of the time. Also YouTube. I'm getting back on there. I have a ton of new visual series and things like that I'm doing. So tap in with me on social media. I might put you in my close friends where it's really at.
Right. Where it's really at.
Where it's really at. Follow
Yeah.
my label, Indie West Music Group. Check out my artist, Lyric the Genius. She's got new music out this year as well. Just tap in with us over in our corner of V-World.
Yeah,
we have a lot of talented artists hanging around. I love talented musical people. That's my tribe. So I always have somebody I'm trying to put on. So come tap in with us there.
And I just put you guys on if you haven't met her. V-Rose, man, listen, one of my faves, man. This Christian R&B scene bubbling so much, and she was just someone who, I feel like CHH grabbed you just because Christian R&B wasn't really a thing yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like we were like CHH, V-Rose, and like she should rap, no, but she's like you just is someone you just need to know.
That's exactly what it was.
Literally. And I'm just so grateful. Like you've been just so consistent and faithful in what you've been doing. And I'm just so grateful, and I'm so looking forward to see everything that you're doing this year. You're welcome, America, everyone watching, putting you on to V. And make sure you guys are tapping in with her, Indie West Music Group, her artists, everything that she has going on. And shout out to everyone that's been tuning in to the 116 Life and for tuning into this week's episode. Listen, thank you guys again for rocking with us as always. We'll see you guys next week. And my name is Meah Evans, and this has been the Holy Culture. This has been Holy Culture Radio, Sirius XM Channel 140, the 116 Life. And we'll see you guys next week.